Tokyo, Japan. It was a bright sunny morning, and the atmosphere at the luxurious five-star hotel was filled with excitement. This was not just a wedding, but the biggest event in the city's elite. The most powerful figures gathered, businessmen, politicians, and top stars were all present. All came to bless the golden couple, Kenjiro, a successful young businessman, and Aiko, the only daughter of one of Tokyo's most powerful families. The lavishness of the wedding was displayed in every detail, from the colorful banquet tables to the gorgeous fresh flower bouquets, radiating the light of a life that anyone would envy. But behind that perfect picture, a dark shadow was quietly lurking. As the bride and groom prepared to exchange their vows, a woman appeared from the crowd, uninvited and full of determination. No one knew who she was, but in just a few minutes she would completely change the lives of Kenjiro, Aiko, and the entire family. Amidst the melodious music and the cheers, the woman stepped onto the stage, her voice cold. "Before you say your vows, perhaps everyone should know the truth." The crowd murmured. Some chuckled, thinking that this was just a joke. But as she began to expose the terrible secret between Kenjiro and Takumi, the bride's father, the truth gradually emerged like a nightmare. Every word she spoke was like a sharp knife stabbing into the hearts of everyone present. The guests were stunned. The bride was speechless. Kenjiro's face turned pale. No one dared to breathe loudly as the woman presented the evidence, exposing the sinful relationship between the groom and his father-in-law. The entire hall fell into chaos. Screams, sobs, and dark gazes were focused on Kenjiro and Takumi. But the most terrifying thing did not stop there. In an unexpected moment, Kenjiro lost control, rushing towards the woman. And in a split second, a heavy object swung down, striking her, and everything was covered in blood. A wedding that was once a symbol of perfection had now become the scene of a bloody murder. Kenjiro was once the epitome of an ambitious young man who lacked a solid financial foundation. Born into a middle-class family in Tokyo, he always dreamed of a life of luxury where money and power ruled everything. Although his starting point was not good, Kenjiro met Yumi, a woman who he truly believed would change his life. Yumi loved Kenjiro sincerely. She was not only his lover but also his spiritual and financial support. Yumi was always ready to help Kenjiro, from taking care of his living expenses to giving him words of encouragement whenever he encountered difficulties. She believed that her sincere love would keep them together forever. But perhaps Yumi did not realize that Kenjiro was not like her. In his heart, his desire for power, status, and money grew day by day. At first, Kenjiro still felt lucky to have Yumi by his side. But gradually, what she brought was no longer enough for him. The safe and stable life that Yumi brought him could not satisfy his bottomless ambition. Kenjiro began to look at their relationship with concern, even frustration. Yumi could not bring him wealth, and Kenjiro could not be satisfied with a love without a clear future in money or power. Conflict began to appear, but it did not come from loud arguments or direct disputes. It was small indifferences, long silences whenever they were together. Kenjiro began to spend more time meeting powerful people, looking for ways to approach bigger opportunities. He gradually distanced himself from Yumi, no longer excited by her loving conversations. While Yumi still thought that their love just needed time to grow, Kenjiro secretly planned a bigger move in his life. For Kenjiro, Yumi is now just a memory, a past that he needs to overcome to move on to more luxurious and flashy things. In the glittering space of a Tokyo high society party, Kenjiro walks in, surrounded by glittering lights and familiar faces of power. This is the opportunity he has been waiting for, a chance to meet people who could change his life. Courtesy greetings, clinking glasses, and social smiles fill the room. In an instant, Kenjiro notices the presence of one man who stands out from the crowd. Takumi, Aiko's father, the woman he doesn't yet know will be his future bride. Takumi stands there, surrounded by the respect and attention of those around him. He is a powerful figure in the world of finance and business, with assets and connections that stretch across Tokyo. Kenjiro can't help but notice Takumi, and immediately realizes that this is the man he needs to approach. Takumi moved gracefully among the guests, receiving their respect naturally. He didn't say much, but his every move exuded power and influence. Kenjiro, who had always longed to connect with people like Takumi, decided to approach him. At the right moment, Kenjiro approached and started a conversation. At first, the conversation was only polite, but it quickly changed when Takumi saw the admiration in the way Kenjiro looked at him. After a while of exchanging words, Takumi seemed to feel confident enough and revealed a secret that not everyone knew: he was bisexual. This was a side of him that no one in Tokyo's upper class or in his family could have expected. Kenjiro did not react clearly, but from that moment on, their relationship was no longer just a formality. This secret changed everything. Takumi, with his confidence and power, showed Kenjiro another side of the world. He wanted to enter a world that was not just about money, but also about complex connections that lay outside the boundaries of society. From that night on, Kenjiro realized that a relationship with Takumi could open doors he had never imagined. But the price may be greater than he is prepared to face. The relationship between Kenjiro and Takumi begins as a simple business relationship. Kenjiro is invited to high-class meetings thanks to Takumi, and they quickly become trusted partners. However, hidden behind the business discussions are deeper conversations, where Takumi gradually reveals his powerful personality and irresistible charm. Kenjiro feels attracted to Takumi, not only because of his admiration for him, but also because of the invisible power that Takumi radiates. At first, Kenjiro does not think that this relationship will go beyond work. But Takumi, with his sophistication and calculation, gradually leads Kenjiro into a complex and taboo relationship. Step by step, they begin to meet more frequently, no longer just business partners, but has turned into a sexual relationship, carefully hidden under the glamorous shell of the upper class. The secret of this relationship began to become difficult to keep as the two became more and more attached to each other. Takumi, fearing that making this relationship public would affect his reputation and power in the financial world, began to think. He knew that Japanese society was full of control and curiosity, and that even the slightest flaw could destroy everything he had built. From there, Takumi came up with a bold plan: marry his daughter Aiko to Kenjiro. This was a smart move. Kenjiro becoming his son-in-law would make it easier for Takumi to keep Kenjiro close to him without anyone suspecting anything. Any meetings between them from then on would be covered up with reasonable family reasons, and no one would be able to question the true relationship between the two. In this way, Takumi maintained his honor while keeping Kenjiro under control. For Kenjiro, this plan is not only a way to escape his old life, but also a golden opportunity to enter the upper class. Marrying Aiko will officially bring him into the most powerful family in Tokyo, where money and power are no longer a distant dream. Kenjiro clearly understands that this marriage is not for love with Aiko, but the path to the power and career he desires. Kenjiro does not hesitate to agree to Takumi's plan. As soon as he accepts, he begins to distance himself from Yumi, his ex-lover who was by his side during difficult times. Yumi had been his financial and emotional support, but now she had become a past that Kenjiro wanted to bury. He no longer needed Yumi's support, as Takumi had taken over that role. His meetings with Yumi became less frequent, and when they were together, Kenjiro became cold and indifferent to her. Yumi gradually noticed the change in Kenjiro, but she couldn't understand why. Kenjiro's vague explanations only made their relationship more tense. Yumi tried to hold on to her old love, but Kenjiro had decided to move on to the world that Takumi had painted for him. He completely left Yumi, leaving her in confusion and pain. Since entering a relationship with Takumi, Kenjiro has received not only affection but also financial support. His life has changed rapidly. Extravagant parties, expensive gifts, and trips to high society have now become Kenjiro's daily routine. He is no longer the ambitious but financially deprived young man he once was. His current life has given him everything he once dreamed of. Luxurious apartments, luxury cars, parties at top hotels, all of it comes from Takumi's hands. Kenjiro now lives in a world that he used to only dare to look at from afar. He no longer remembers the days of struggling financially or Yumi's support. Now he is part of this powerful world, and that makes him increasingly distant from his past. However, the price of that luxury was not only the separation from Yumi, but also the change in Kenjiro himself. He became cold, calculating, and increasingly immersed in his own ambition. He no longer cared about his old friends. Instead, he focused on superficial social relationships in the upper class. This high-class life not only completely transformed Kenjiro, but also pushed him deeper into the vortex of power that Takumi had created. Kenjiro no longer felt worried or bothered about his relationship with Takumi. In his eyes, it was just a part of his new life, a life full of glamour and temptation. But he did not realize that this relationship would be the source of unpredictable consequences, and that Takumi, the one who brought him into this world, could also be the one who would drag him down to the bottom of the abyss. Yumi never thought that her life would turn into such a dark, dead end. Her relationship with Kenjiro used to be everything to her, and even though he had recently become distant, Yumi still believed that their love could overcome any storm. But one evening, when Kenjiro carelessly left his phone on the table, everything changed completely. A text message from Takumi popped up on the screen, filled with intimate words, far too intimate for two men. Yumi, with a rising sense of unease, decided to check Kenjiro's phone. She never expected that a few simple steps would lead her to a terrible secret. The messages exchanged between Kenjiro and Takumi, Aiko's father, were clearer than ever. They were not only business partners, but also had a deep sexual relationship. Yumi was stunned as she read each message, feeling overwhelmed. She realized that she had been completely deceived, not only by the man she loved, but also by the father of her future bride, the man Kenjiro was about to marry. The pain in Yumi's heart exploded like a raging storm. She had devoted her youth, finances, and love to Kenjiro, only to receive this terrible betrayal in return. She felt like she had been betrayed not only once, but also by the two men she trusted the most, trampling on her feelings. The pain quickly turned into anger. Yumi could not forgive Kenjiro and Takumi for what they had done. In a rage and determined to get revenge, Yumi planned to expose the whole truth on Kenjiro and Aiko's wedding day. She would not allow them to continue to deceive her any longer. The wedding day, which was supposed to be a big day for Kenjiro, would turn into a stage for the revelation of this dark secret. She would appear in the crowd and expose the sinful relationship in front of everyone, leaving no one unscathed for what they had done. The atmosphere at Kenjiro and Aiko's wedding was filled with splendor and luxury. Crystal chandeliers illuminated the vast space. Melodious music harmonized with the sparkling evening gowns of the noble guests. This was a grand event in Tokyo's upper class, where no one expected that a dark secret was about to be revealed. Kenjiro stood next to Aiko, the bride in a pure white dress. The ceremony seemed perfect down to every detail, but that peace was quickly broken when Yumi, Kenjiro's ex-lover, suddenly appeared. The door swung open, and she walked into the middle of the hall. Her appearance caused the crowd to whisper. No one understood what was going on, but it was clear that something was very wrong. Aiko looked at the strange woman walking forward in surprise, while Kenjiro stood frozen, and Takumi, the bride's father, could not hide his tension. Yumi, wearing a black dress that completely contrasted with the atmosphere of the ceremony, stepped forward without anyone stopping her. The hall became strangely silent. All eyes turned to her. "Before you continue, I have a truth to tell." Yumi's cold voice rang out, cutting through the tense atmosphere. She didn't wait any longer, immediately exposing the cruel truth, the secret relationship between Kenjiro and Takumi, the father that Aiko always respected. She exposed that Kenjiro was not only Aiko's fiancé, but also her father's lover. Yumi's words sent the hall into a state of shock. Gossip started to rise from the guests. Many turned to look at Kenjiro and Takumi. Aiko stood still, unable to believe what had just happened. After Yumi exposed the shocking truth about Kenjiro and Takumi's relationship, the atmosphere in the wedding hall became stifling. All eyes were on Kenjiro, who had just put on the perfect appearance of a model groom, now standing there, stiff and frightened. He tried to deny it, but his voice was shaky. His weak excuses could not hide the truth that had been exposed. The evidence from Yumi, her text messages and her testimony were too obvious to refute. In a fit of panic and despair, Kenjiro suddenly lost control. His anger flared, and he rushed towards Yumi, unable to contain his rage. In a moment of madness, Kenjiro grabbed a nearby heavy object, a decorative vase, and smashed it hard on Yumi's head. She collapsed on the spot, blood pouring from her head, her body motionless. The luxurious wedding atmosphere was instantly filled with horror. Screams echoed throughout the hall. The distinguished guests were completely stunned by this bloody scene. Aiko, who was the bride that day, stood silently, her eyes fixed on Yumi's body. She could not believe what had just happened. Takumi, the powerful father, was also speechless, unable to hide his horror at the consequences he had indirectly caused. The police quickly arrived, and Kenjiro was immediately arrested without resistance. The wedding, which was supposed to be a lavish event, now became a bloody murder scene. A few months later, Kenjiro stood in court, facing a murder trial. No longer wearing the elegant suit or the flashy appearance of the upper class, he was now just a criminal in the eyes of justice. The evidence of his murder was clearly presented, from witnesses to physical evidence. Kenjiro had no words to defend his guilt. After considering all the factors, the jury quickly reached a verdict. Kenjiro was sentenced to life in prison for murder in a fit of rage. His fate was decided from the moment he lost control and attacked Yumi. Takumi, though not facing prison, has lost everything: her honor, her career, and her family. Aiko, a girl who once dreamed of a happy future, is now left with only desolation in her soul after all the tragedies that happened on her wedding day. The story ends in chaos when everything the characters once desired disappears, leaving behind a chain of irreparable tragedies. The case of Kenjiro, Takumi, and Yumi not only ended in blood and tears of those involved, but also became one of the most shocking events in modern Japanese history. Behind the perfect facade of a powerful and upper-class family lies a dark story of betrayal, ambition, and moral decay. Kenjiro's blind ambition, Takumi's cold-blooded calculation, and the betrayal revealed in the seemingly perfect wedding made this case spread across the pages of newspapers for years to come. More than just a murder in a fit of rage, the story also exposes the dark corners of human beings when caught up in the vortex of power and desire. Kenjiro, a man who once had everything, lost everything in a moment of anger. Takumi, as a rich and powerful man, could not escape the scrutiny of society after the truth about his relationship with Kenjiro was exposed. Their downfall, both morally and socially, was the price they had to pay for their bad choices. This case is not only a lesson in the cruelty of ambition, but also a warning about human degradation when morality is trampled. Aiko, the only survivor of the case, is forever affected by the tragedy of her father and future husband. Their case has become a symbol of the collapse of seemingly solid values in modern Japanese society. Stories like this, even if they take place behind closed doors, always have one ending: destruction. And Kenjiro's case is the clearest proof of that.